Our next presenter is Thomas Levine, and he'll be talking about plotting data as music and video in R.
I'm mostly actually just going to play my music, and then I'll talk a little bit about it. This song is about iris flowers, the iris flower data set. And the data set has the variables of the sepal length and the sepal width, the petal width and the petal length, and the species of flower. And then each record is a different particular flower that was observed. And the way I represent it in the sound is that the sound, I ordered the different flowers in time. So right now we're playing one flower. Every clap is a new flower. And the characteristics of the music for that segment of time corresponds to the characteristics of the flower. So the drums turn on when the petals are very long. They're ordered by the petal width. The notes are faster when the sepals are long. The pickup note is a different pitch depending on the sepal width, and the rhythm depends on the species. And in the video, this is all represented in the video, and I'll note, though, the color corresponds to the species. So right now, we've gotten towards the end of the song, we're at the biggest species, and that's why the music is the most intense at this point. This is, as Philip pointed out at the beginning, a pretty bad song. So let's stop playing that and do something a little easier on the ears. Yeah. This is so. And okay. Yeah. So this is how I think about data analysis. Data are abstract numbers, and in order to they don't exist in the world. So in order to perceive these, we have to represent them in forms that we can perceive, that are worldly forms, not just abstract numbers. So we make graphs. We might also make data tables, and with both of these, then we can look at them with our eyes. But perhaps we could instead make cevapcici, and then by eating the cevapi, then we would understand the data. And this might sound a bit strange, but the idea is we don't have to limit ourselves to graphs. We can clearly do music. Okay, yeah. So this one just has music, not oh shoot, not video. And this is about a questionnaire. Is it loud enough for the back or in the room? Okay. Yeah. Well, it doesn't really matter whether you can read it. It's they're each. That row was the questions, and this way is numbers from 1 to 6. These are questions, and you rate them from a scale of 1 to 6. And it happens these questions are a questionnaire about people's perceptions of whether a bathroom is clean or dirty. And for each question, it's, here's a situation in the bathroom. Like the first one is there's toilet paper on the floor, and you should rate whether you find this to be extremely acceptable, pretty acceptable, barely unacceptable, pretty unacceptable, or extremely unacceptable. And then the way it converted into music is the rhythm here corresponds to the response in the questionnaire, and the pitch corresponds to the question. And the time is the participant. So the first, like, we're already many participants in. The very beginning was the first participant for the first, like, second, then the next participant. And so, like, the first, okay, now we're going to hear the legend. That pitch is the first question. This is the second question. This is the third question, fourth question. And they're playing six beats, or six in a measure. I'll play this again. So here we're hearing the legend again. Each pitch is a different question, and they're all 6. The rhythm is the same in all these. It's 6, and that rhythm corresponds to. It's one or the other. I think it corresponds to pretty unacceptable. If there's more of the same note in a measure, it's more unacceptable situation. And if it's just one note, if it's just like dun dun dun, then the person thinks that it's okay to have toilet paper on the floor. But if it's like da 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 da, that means it's not okay. And then these all mix together because like 3 and 4 don't quite evenly go into each other, so you have these complicated rhythms come out. Now, I won't go really into that much detail about how I make it, how I like the actual R code. I guess I could actually, but we'll see how bored we get of the music first. But I should start at least with the basics of the audio. R doesn't have any sort of audio device, so I have to in order to do this, you have to understand some of this stuff. Because in the end of the way I do this is by writing files and playing the files with an audio player. Sound is a series of air pressures. Maybe I'll stop that. No. Yeah. Sound is a series of air pressures. The air pressure changes over there, like inside our ear, and then that hits the eardrum, and then the eardrum recognizes that as sound. So in order to make the sound, we have to change the air pressure. And we can change the air pressure by moving a speaker back and forth. And because we're doing this from a computer, we send signal through a wire that goes to the speaker that changes in voltage, and that moves the speaker back and forth. So we can generate in R like a wave like some numbers like this, and then we could send this signal through the wire, and that would get us the sound in the speaker. And in R, a lot of times in R we use vectors to represent things. So you have a long sequence of numbers, and that sequence of numbers is a sound that we send through the wire to the speaker. And so this is how you can come up with things that sound like, everyone's always surprised that I managed to come up with something that sounds like a little bit better than noise. This has like notes and stuff. The pitches here correspond to, they follow a major scale. And because inside of R, I did all the music stuff to make it come out like this way. This one is ridership of buses in Chicago and subways in New York City. And there are two tracks going, one for Chicago, one for New York City, and the pitch corresponds to the daily number of people who put a ticket in the machine and got into the system. And higher pitch means more people. And you hear the weekend pattern, the weekly pattern. It's 7 beats in a measure, and then the weekend, it's like dun 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 dun. And you can hear the Saturday's low and the Sunday's even lower. And then, of course, the video also does the same thing. I make the videos in the base R graphics system, and then I make the sound by writing text files, or writing WAV files or PCM files, just with plain writing bytes to a file in R. And people are always like confused that you can write, like make music in R. That's why I like doing it. R is like a terrible language, and that's why it's fun to like make stuff in it, especially when it's not what people expect you to make it. Usually people use it for statistics. And here, if there's a weird week, you can hear that Chicago and New York don't line up the way they usually do. Like there. Yeah. Yeah. So I usually just use base R, and the way I do this is I guess I should really show you. Yeah. I'll go through all this and then I show you afterwards. I want to just play a bunch of songs. And that's what I sort of said. I come up with a sequence of numbers and I write them all to a file in a WAV format, and then I play with the audio player. But I also, because sometimes it's like, some people don't understand what I mean when I show them R code, I also have this spreadsheet version of it that doesn't work the same way. I call it sheet music because you're making sheet music in a spreadsheet. And here we have the same data represented in two different forms. The left, the spreadsheet thing is, it's called scientific notation for writing musical notes. So B4 is the middle B note on the piano. And then the right is normal sheet music. And here, because it's a spreadsheet, we can represent the data this way, but we can also use spreadsheet as a programming language, and I have all the music composition functions in here. So you can say this column is going to be a third interval up of that column in the key of G. And then you can copy that down the whole column, and you can make chords and stuff. And actually, one beat in the right side in the sheet music corresponds to one record in the spreadsheet. And the bars in the spreadsheet correspond to the bars in the sheet music. Yeah, but I noticed that it was kind of like a bit. I explained to people many times this is how you make the music in R, and no one can ever figure it out, even though I explained it really clearly. So I thought maybe I need to try something more newfangled for like the kids these days. So I made this business intelligence dashboard widget. Yeah, let's play that one. Oh, actually, I should just mirror this screen, and then it'll be so much easier for me. Oh shoot, I don't have ARender installed. Okay, I'm not going to mirror the screen. And yeah. Yeah. Maybe a little bit quieter, or I can do that actually. Okay. But right now it's just playing the Mario theme or whatever it's called. But this is a business intelligence dashboard, so when I uncheck this box, it'll print something. It'll play something much more intelligent and businessy. Here we're using the quarterly earnings for the Johnson & Johnson company for 20 years, and that's represented in this graph, but also in the music. And I can say I only want to play the first quarter and the fourth quarter, and then here you saw the dots, some of them disappeared, and I'm only going to play those. The way the music mapping works is the notes are ordered by time. Like, so the first quarter, from quarter one from 1960 is the very beginning of the loop, and so on. And then the pitch corresponds to the earnings of that quarter. And so if I say only do the first and fourth quarter, we'll only play the earnings for the first and fourth quarter, and then it loops. I can also use this slider thingy to only loop within a particular section of it. And like, this is kind of obvious, maybe. I mean, yeah, but it's kind of like, it's just fun for me to use business intelligence software to make music. And then I can go up and say, yeah, you know, the Johnson & Johnson quarterly earnings, we need to analyze our data with music. And so I have this widget here that you can put in your business intelligence software. It's really practical. And the way you write this, it's actually all done in JavaScript, and R is really just connecting these pieces so you can use these like slider thingies. The JavaScript here, it gets input as a time, and you get output as an amplitude. So it'd be the voltage that goes into the same idea as the voltage that goes into the speaker. And actually, let's stop this one. Yeah, I think that's probably the worst sound I've played so far. Yeah, this sound representation is common in a bunch of JavaScript packages. So you can actually take an existing JavaScript song that doesn't have parameters for plugging into the sliders and the data set, and then you can just add the parameters and then put it in here, and then you can have like, yeah, then you can use it to analyze some very boring data, and then stand in front of people and say, yes, this is our company's financial results, and I think that's fun. Now. Was that all? No, there was another song. Oh, I think I have more still, yeah. I want to comment on the practical applications of data music. For me, it's really just like, I want friends, and people seem to like this, so I come talk about it, and then maybe you'll want to be my friend. But, you know, maybe you already have enough friends. So people keep telling me it might be useful if you can't see for analyzing data. I haven't really looked enough at this, but I will. Makes sense. But one application that I know is already very good is for pretending that your data are useful, because almost always they're just garbage. They're garbage, but you need to convince people that they're magical, because that's your business model. You're in like data science, you're in the business of convincing people that there are big problems in the world and data are going to solve them. And this is a great example of that. This is data about the usage of a publishing software service as an alternative to software for newspapers. And it's about, can we turn off the lights? Is that easy? No? Okay, never mind. Yeah, it's about like, someone gave me a spreadsheet with like the different newspapers and different months, and that had things like activity per day and comments per day and stuff. And I didn't really know what that meant, but it doesn't matter, because all I needed to do was make it look fancy and cool so that the person's product would look all innovative. And then he could convince people that it's like, they're some really advanced, innovative company because they use data and they make data music, and doesn't it look really cool? And it sounds nice. Like, because people don't really care about like understanding what's in all these numbers mean. It's just like a cool thing now, so you need to say you're using it, and yeah. I'll play a little bit more, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the applications. I guess I can tell you a little bit about this. Generally more stuff is happening when there's more activity. So more comments or more whatever the other indicators were. And then it's cycling among 4 different newspapers. This color change indicates it's summertime, and these are all university newspapers, so the pattern of activity changes a little bit. And yeah. There's like the way I get the pitches is there's the variable is like activity or something, and then when there's higher activity, I go up along a chord along a inversions of a chord. Oh, this is a cool part. It got a lot quieter right now, and that's because we queried the data at like December, and now it's January, and so now there's no more data, so it got all quieter at the end. It was very convenient because it sounds kind of nice, like at the end. Yeah. So you saw here that it's a good way of pretending that useless data are valuable, and this is important because as data scientists, your job is to convince people that your data are valuable, and almost always they're not. So you need to come up with like garbage like this. The great philosopher Dijkstra said, "We should never forget the crucial distinction between the salesman and the scientist. It is the salesman's duty to please his customers, or if that is too difficult, to fool them." And exactly that's what we're doing here. So it's not just convincing your clients that your product is magical. It's also convincing the workers that they're doing something very interesting with their lives, and that'll make up for their dismal career prospects and their terrible jobs, and even for convincing yourself that you're doing something interesting with your life. But of course, even more interesting to me is that we might be able to use this for multivariate data analysis. In the past, we had data, and then we made graphics of some sort, and then we looked at the graphics with our eyes. And that's how we analyze the data. But now, you see, we have big data. It got bigger. And so it doesn't fit in our eyes anymore. So that's why we need music, because then we have more bandwidth. But why stop there? We have more senses. Well, hold on. I didn't say that part yet. Yeah, so we have music. And this one, this is actually a great example of both of these last two, pretending that the data are useful and the multivariate data analysis. This actually has 20 variables in it. Half of them are represented in the video, half of them are represented in the sound. They're different variables. The video is about flights to and from the Budapest airport over time, and it's like it has things like whether it's a cargo flight or whether there's cargo on the flight and whether there's passengers on the flight, and the number of flights on a particular route. Different countries have different locations there, and a bigger circle is more flights, and the planes are going in and out based on like the amount of cargo they're carrying or something like that. And they're also spinning back and forth, but you can't really see that here. It was originally inspired by, it was like very faintly inspired for me by Hungarian jumping dances, but it didn't turn out to sound anything like that. Yeah, so the video has all sorts of stuff like that, and the music is about various indicators about Hungary and about Budapest, like the gross domestic product and the unemployment rate and the number of hotel beds and the amount of exports and imports and internal trade and a bunch of stuff like that. And so like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The way that works is the first note is a bass note that doesn't mean anything, and the other 7 are the interval between the first note and the others is meaningful, and each of those 7 corresponds to a different variable. Like, I think the first 3 are like imports, export, and internal trade, and then there's also other things like there's a flourish, a grace note. So it's like usually it's da 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 da, but sometimes it goes da 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 da. And that grace note corresponds to the unemployment rate and the direction of the change of the unemployment rate. Oh shoot, no, I have a while. Okay, yeah, and I have this all written up in a legend, but it's so complicated that I don't remember it. So it demonstrates both of these. That like here you can represent all the different variables in it, and actually it'd be so easy for me to put even more variables. But also like maybe you do get on one hand, the way I've thought about multivariate data analysis is you have like so many variables going on, and if you can just get some way of giving you some intuition about like something is interesting in these variables or in this section, then you can limit the variables a little bit more and focus a little bit more in more detail. So it's fine that you don't really have a clear idea what's going on. Maybe. On the other hand, maybe it is just completely useless for data analysis, so it looks cool, and then you can use it to tell people that you're doing something very magical. But anyway, yeah, I think there might be some potential in using multiple senses to analyze more complex data sets, especially in like when you have lots of variables in your data set. But yeah, as I started saying earlier, we have more senses than the visual and the sound sense. So maybe we really could make Jevapchichi with our data. And well, I have an example here of cheese. It turns out that the French word for pie chart is camembert, which is a type of cheese. But I thought we should have some real cheese, not some not just a pie chart. If I want to have cheese about my data, I need to have real cheese about my data. So here, these cheeses represent the top 40 companies in the French stock exchange, and the weight of the cheese corresponds to the market capitalization of the company. The type of milk that it's made of corresponds to the country in which it's registered, which is almost always France, but one case it's Belgium, and the other case it's Netherlands, I think. And then the cooking method corresponds to the industry of the company, and then they're placed on top of a scatter plot, and that corresponds to these other indicators of their finances. And I also did one with doner kebabs, where it's the same idea, where you have these various attributes of that. In that case, it was cars, and then they're placed on top of a scatter plot. So you get all the dimensions of the kebab, like the presence of spicy sauce, and the presence of garlic, and the presence of other things, and the shape of it, whether it's actually a kebab or it's inside what type of bread it's in and stuff. But then you also get to put it on top of the scatter plot. Then you get the X and Y. And now, a final note for those who are, I'm sure a lot of you will find this very useful for maybe if you have a job. It'll be very useful for your work, because then you can use it to analyze your quarterly earnings, as I showed you in the dashboard. But for everyone else who's going to stick with just normal visualization instead of using food to analyze your data, there is actually still something useful you can learn from this presentation, which is that data analysis is about converting your abstract data into some form that you can understand, some form that you can perceive, in order that you can look at it with your eyes or whatever, and then it gets into your brain. You have to go through this form, and there's no one correct form. And there's no fundamental one. You have to figure out the right one for the data. So when you're coming up with new data analysis methods, think about it as you need to come up with some way that makes sense for you to perceive it. And you don't have to limit yourselves to any particular method, but on the other hand, you have to think about how to make something that a human can perceive. If you're interested in this, you can look at my website is the first one that has all this music and stuff. And the second one is the R Arts mailing list, which I run, but and it's kind of funny because it's R Art. It sounds funny, I think. And so people interested in making art in R. And oh, you know, there's one more that I wanted to play too before I play this last one. Well, no, I'll play this last one. I'll play this one first, and then I'll go to the other one. So I started making these making them. No, I'll go to the other one first. Yeah, it's better for the story. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. So the first one of these I made was with some friends, or a band. We're CSV Sound System, but we've since disbanded. Maybe sometime maybe it's been long enough now that we can have a reunion tour or something. And we made 2 versions of this song about the financial crisis in the United States. Here, the note that we hear right now, let's go back to the beginning. What you're hearing right now is related to the changes in the balance of the Treasury of the United States. And it's not loud enough. And so if there's a day when the balance went up a lot, it'll have a flourish like like that. And if it went down a lot, it'll go the other way. And now we've added in the debt of the United States and the debt ceiling, which is the maximum amount of debt that Congress permits the government to take out. And the note that came in, when it gets higher pitch, it means we have more debt. And when it gets louder, it's getting closer to the debt ceiling, which is, the debt ceiling is that maximum amount of debt. And every so often, we'll get really close to the debt ceiling, and then Congress will raise the debt ceiling. So if we were like in the lounge and we're dark out, I'd say we need to raise the debt ceiling now. We're going to raise the debt ceiling, and see, pretty soon we're not going to have any more place to go, so we're going to raise the debt ceiling, and then the debt's going to go up. So now we raised the debt ceiling, and we also added in another variable, the market yield on United States Treasury bonds. And this means, I'm not going to explain what the reason this is funny is because we're using all these really fancy words that like are all bullshit. But then we're playing this electronic music, so it's like, are we being serious or not? So it doesn't really matter what market yield is. It's just that it's like, I can explain it afterwards if you're interested, but it's just like some finance thing. Who cares? Yeah. So now that other note that came in corresponds to it's listed on the video as interest rate, but the market yield. And now I'll explain a little bit about the video. I think the different tracks correspond to those different lines in the video. But the face there is a Chernoff face. Has anyone ever heard of Chernoff faces? Okay, the face here represents a bunch of different variables. The different like whether it's doing like this or like this or something, or what color it is, that all corresponds to different variables. And the idea is that when you look at the face, it gives you it conveys some mood, and that'll give you some idea of the multivariate system. So the face corresponds to all the different particular flows in and out of the Treasury. Like if military spending, if there was a lot of withdrawals from the military account on one day, or there was a lot of, or spending in the military account one day, or if there was a lot of deposits into the healthcare account one day, that'll show up in the face. Oh yeah, we started at the very left of the plot was 2008, I think. Right now it's 2011, and it'll go all the way to 2013. So the financial crisis was in the middle. In the other version of the song, the financial crisis sounds really cool. This one, it's not as obvious. think that's enough. Okay, so that was the second version of the first song that I made, but I made it with other people, and that's why it sounds better, because the other person was like better at making the music sound like, I don't know, like that. But before that, years before that, was the very first music video I made in R. And this one I didn't really make the music at all. I just made the video. I just made the video, and I took someone else had recorded the sound, because I thought it was interesting. Has anyone heard the song about the 12 nights of Christmas? It's about all the gifts that my true love gave to me on the 12 nights of Christmas. And the first night you get one, a partridge in a pear tree. You get one of them. The next night you get 2 turtle doves, I think, and again 1 partridge in a pear tree. So you add up all the different, and it keeps going up like that. So you can add up all the different gifts you get. And I thought that was cool, so I made a video about it.
On the first day of Christmas, my true love sent to me a partridge in a...
This one also in R.
On the second day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 2 turtle doves and a partridge in a pear tree.
And the way I made this is I generated all the graphs as a PDF file, and then I took a screencast and I just advanced the PDF while playing the music. Okay, that's enough. We can take questions now. Or I can play some more. Either way.
No, it's okay. Just why?
Why?
No, really. What is the motivation behind this?
Well, the Christmas, yeah, that's I guess why I was talking about the last two. The Christmas one was just like, I made the drawing of like, on the first day I get this many, and it comes up to be some interesting. I don't know the mathematical name of it, but it's like an interesting pattern. And I was thinking, oh, people are into like infographics these days. Maybe I should try making this video. Like, and it's like, this is actually even more informative, like more, in a way it's like more informative than a lot of the stupid infographics. A lot of them, they only have one variable, they only have the area variable, but everyone's like so into these like, oh, you made these square boxes and it shows you, oh, this thing's bigger than this thing. And I always want to make multiple variables in one plot. So here I actually at least had the day and the day and the gifts per day. That's 2 variables. Usually people only have 1. And also because like usually people don't make videos in R, so I thought that was funny. I really like doing this where so yeah, no one even understands the concept that you might make videos in R or music from a spreadsheet. And that's fun. One time I wrote like I never really learned any of the algorithms like that you learn in an algorithms class or the data structures in a data structure class. And part of the reason I never did was like maybe I need to practice, do my own toy implementation. And I was like, why do I need to implement my own toy implementation? But then eventually I had the idea, I'll do it in PGSQL. I implemented a linked list in PGSQL. And I was just like, why would you ever do that? There's absolutely no reason to do it. Like really, people even trying to come up with good reasons. And I said, no, actually there's a better way. And I explained the alternative for like some person said for making graphs, it might be good, but actually no, there's a better way to do graphs in SQL. But yeah, it's just like, it's so pointless. I like that. I don't know. Everything seems so pointless. I'm going to make it even more pointless. And then, but then actually, like, there might actually be something interesting, like legit interesting about it that people don't realize you can convert the data into different forms. Oh well. We have 5 more minutes. I'll play one more. Unless no one so that one we already played. But yeah. This was the original version of the one that I played the second version of. Oh, and if you want to learn how to actually implement these, go to my website and it has all the instructions. Which no one ever manages to follow somehow, but we'll see. Yeah. A quick summary though. An R vector is a sequence of numbers, and then you can write those as a PCM file where every like 2 bytes in the file corresponds to a frame of audio. And then I use FFmpeg to convert that to whatever format I want, and to join it with the video that I plot as just a bunch of graphs in R. Yeah, so here, it's still the same way where the low nodes correspond to changes in the balance of the treasury. And the high one is, yeah, the high one's the market yield on the treasury bonds. But I'm never really sure. I think I should look at the code again to make sure. I think the debt is also in there somewhere. And the mapping is very simple in this one. It's just the pitch, the bottom is like, there are these flourishes once in a while, and otherwise it's pretty much a standard bass track. And then the top is, the pitch corresponds to the yield. So higher pitch is higher yield. And higher yield would mean that the price of a particular bond went down, so that, never mind, I said I wasn't going to explain that. I'll explain it later if you want to know. So now we've been going for a while, and the interest rate's been, or the yield has been kind of flat. Each beat is a business day. And it's like before, we're starting from 2008 going to 2013. And in we're maybe like a year before the financial crisis. And then after this is done, will be no more questions. It'll be the end of the. It will be at time after this. So when everything went crazy, the balance of the treasury went up a lot, and the yield on the treasury bonds went down a lot. And yield going down a lot would mean that, in fact, that, like, if you were holding a bond, you made money. So, like, people were buying bonds. Yeah, a neat thing about this is it's also just might just be a good way to make music. Like, I didn't really make music, like, electronic music before. And I didn't know any of the music software, but I know to use my statistics software. And I don't even need to make the music myself. I just hook it up to this data set that has the right amount of random variation, and I hook it up in the right way that mostly it's this nice pattern, and then once in a while there's this weird thing that happens that's kind of interesting, so you don't get too bored. Okay, we're just about at the hour, so. That's it.
Any questions, maybe? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.